Is this your handout? Your most self-righteous one? Something grander?
Here we are, another episode of If You Will podcast, season 4. It chugs, it chugs along. Today I have a Robin Koob from Run Remedy. Great. I mean, it's her moniker. I mean, he's the band. And it is really lovely stuff. It's got some cool indie folk rock influences. And Robin, it's been really fun kind of doing a deep dive on you because I've learned a lot about you. It's interesting when somebody knows a lot about you and you have no idea about them.
Did a little snooping.
Yeah, I do know a lot about your music that I've been doing a lot of research on. And from what I could tell, the violin was your first love. Is that?
Yeah.
What, like, and it, in the interview I read, it said that you had played the violin right up into university. And was there a hope there of seeking a career as a what would you call it, a violinist?
As a concert violinist, yeah.
So develop that story for us.
I saw a violin in 6th grade and immediately fell in love with it. At first sight, someone brought it into a classroom and had to beg my parents for 2 years to let me take lessons. They like to test, and then they never had to ask me to practice. I was obsessed. So from age 7 until 21, I went all the way through the classical world up to university, and was doing conservatory. Went to Bristol Conservatory for a year in the UK, and then unfortunately got a really bad case of carpal tunnel, which is a bit of the kiss of death for someone that needs to spend 5 or 6 hours every day in a practice room. So I had about
and
8.
Was that slow to come on, or was it like pretty shockingly fast?
I was in denial about it. It started to notice symptoms of it, but I had seen a pianist in the class the year under me at uni, and it had sort of undone all of the work and all of the concerts and all of the tours that he was planning to do. So I put blinders on. But yeah, I did end up having to have a few surgeries on my wrists, so I can still play. But being a full-time concert violinist wasn't an option anymore at that stage.
Oh, that must have been a dramatic turn in one's life, like when you're anticipating, here's what I will be.
Yeah.
The body says, no thanks, can't do it. Like, how did you deal with that? Like, what did you turn to?
Well, I was heartbroken, I was completely gutted, as the Brits say. And I put the violin down for a couple of years and focused on changing gears into education. So I was doing a lot of working in education, international education. And then I heard an interview, it's like a documentary with Stefan Grappelli, who was the sort of a jazz violinist that played with Antonio Carlos Jobim, and talked about not having good form and just playing by ear and playing by your heart. And I picked the violin up again, and I thought, well, I can't play Paganini anymore, but I can play something. So I turned the radio on, and anything that came on, I had to add something. So I've become a session violinist, or as all my friends in Manchester call me, I'm like the local string slut of Manchester. I'm okay with that. I'm like self-proclaimed string slut of Manchester. Strings and sings. Right. So,
but so you went from very classical training where you're reading notes and like every part is thought out, like, and you got to stay exactly along those lines to kind of freestyling and,
Yeah.
and
From Dvorak
adapting
to
to what your
Death.
body could do. Yeah, interesting. Wow, that's so cool. And you mentioned that you traveled a lot teaching. Like, was it teaching that you were doing as you were traveling? Like, I read that you went to like Asia, South Korea, China,
Yeah.
and then ended up in the UK.
现在我的中文学得非常好。So,
what what was all the traveling for? Was it like to teach? Were you teaching second language?
I was teaching a mixture, like international schools and music, some ESL, and I ended up in the corporate world, which I still do now. I work with I'm an international corporate trainer in the day.
Cool.
Yeah, I do this. I sit very respectable from the waist up, and then in my waist down, and talk to people all around the world and help them with presentations, or if they're struggling with a merger, or if they need to like have an international meeting and they're nervous about it. That's the day job, but I've always done music as well. It's
Music's like your superpower. You know, you do
yeah,
on the outside. Because I
yeah.
mean, we all have to make a living, right?
Well, thankfully,
Music.
the training work is so flexible that when I have a tour that comes up, or if I have a few days where I want to be in the studio composing or arranging strings for an artist, or for myself, I can go do that and move the other work around me. So I'm in a very blessed position for a musician, and I acknowledge that now. I've had quite a journey, but I'm like really happy where it is.
That's cool. Well, you know, surprisingly enough, a lot of artists are educators. You know, because you do get those like nice time off, and it's a little bit more of a flexible schedule that allows you to kind of keep that passion and your real self alive. Things you love to do and the art you like to do. What was the biggest mind shift from going from the classical training to, you know, indie and folk? And, you know, I heard too that you were big into post metal. Like, tell me that transition that happened from a classical upbringing to like busting the barn doors open and just like noise and sound and unstructured fun.
Unstructured fun. Yeah. I think it was when I was in China. I was doing a lot of session work out there, and there was a great promotion company that was only in Beijing for a few years I think they were called Splitworks. I can't remember, but they brought over some amazing acts that I got to see. You know, I got to look up Mac DeMarco's nose on his first tour when I was there.
Cool.
Because everyone, he's filling out, you know, stadiums somewhere else, but in Beijing, I'm like, you know, shaking his hand after the show. There's nobody. And one of the works that came out, like Wild Beasts came out, and Godspeed You Black Emperor came out. And I saw all these string players doing like long form building post rock. And I think when I moved to Manchester, I really wanted to like throw myself more into music and do less of the day job and risk it and do more. And I fell into playing and touring with this project called Pine, Pijn. And my number got passed around in the metal scene, and I just started going into studios and going on tours to be a dramatic black metal string player.
Oh, that is a mouthful. What does that mean?
Well,
so bring this down to an example. Like, what would you concretely do? So you get these requests come in, we have this part for you. Like, what's that process like, or was those processes?
It's the same now. There's so many genres and so many artists that they're like, I want strings, but they don't have the history in, you know, composing on Sibelius or printing out sheet music for people. So I'm able to go in as one person, especially if they can't afford a full string quartet for a day in a studio. And I can go in there and be like, okay, I'll not only record strings for you, I'll compose it on the spot to fit what I think will be a nice addition to your piece. And I'll do 10 tracks of them, decrease the white noise as much as possible. I'll do some atmospherics, and I just give them a lot of options. And then I'm like, pay me, please.
How many tracks might you lay down in one given session of strings? Like, how many different tracks could you put down?
I mean, once I was like 63 tracks, but it's because I was being like a full orchestra, but I was sort of composing it on the spot in the studio with them and just adding layer after layer after layer to make it sound really massive. And then telling them, okay, pitch this down a third. That's going to be the cello line. Pitch this down an octave. That will be the bass line. If you guys get a cellist or a bassist to come in, they can take that as a suggestion, or you can just keep them pitched down and add some weird effects on them if you'd like, mess with the EQ a little bit. Anything's better than MIDI strings unless it's a conscious choice, to have that sound. And then I started becoming a pedal pusher, and now my board is unbelievable.
You got lots of pedals now.
Oh, I really fell down the rabbit hole, and I've gone full circle. I've got a Mellotron Mel 9 pedal, so I love performing with it, where a real violin is being sent through a pedal board and then comes out the other side, a Mellotron violin.
Oh, wow, that's tricky.
I know.
Love it. Like, Robin, could you, like, with a violin, create like an orchestra sounding composition with a violin only, and then muck around with picks and stuff? Like, is that
you can.
The approach to it?
It takes a lot of time. Sure. I'm not one to lean into loop pedals too much, because then you get caught in 20 minutes of soloing over 2 chords, and I'm sorry, that's just too post-rock for me. It's too boring for me. You can only build so much on 2 chords.
There's a line in the sand, right? Like,
I need harmonic.
Will not do.
I need harmonic movement, man. Yeah, but in the studio, you can really play with that, and especially if you have different spaces to pick the strings up, because one of the magic of recreating an orchestra is different distances from room microphones, and how close you are, how dry you are, how large the room is. You can play with so much of it, but you do have a lot of white noise to cut down on, because foreseeably, if you have 10 violins in a studio, you can record them all with one element of room sound on them, where you've got me 50 times, that's also 50 rooms. So it can become a real racket. Yeah. Right. It's a real
where
racket.
It just becomes a white noise, like, wall of sound.
So I often ask studios, I'm like, what plugins you got for canceling white noise? If you don't want to pay for more string players, like, you better have a good plugin for that.
So, Robin, you ended up in the UK.
Yeah.
So you did your traveling, and what brought you to the UK, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, I met my partner in South Korea, and we traveled around together, and they wanted to retrain. So they're originally from the UK. So back we came, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me. I was like, I'd like to do music in the UK.
Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of sparked your personal musical journey, and Remedy or out of that time?
Kind of. It kind of came out of, oh gosh, everyone's gonna hate this, out of like lockdowns and COVID, but only coincidentally. Sadly, I lost my mom in 2021, and I kind of, looking back on it now, I kind of needed her permission in a way. I didn't, but like in my brain, I think I sort of did, to write the Run Remedy music. I went and looked after her as she was passing away for the last 6 months or so. And yeah, she was kind of like, hey, kiddo, quit playing everybody else's stuff all the time and do your own. And I was like, okay, but my stuff is going to cut into a lot about the hard stuff of us growing up, and the struggle of my coming out and the religious community. And and she was like, I'll be gone anyway, go for it.
Like,
So
was that a bit of a when you opened up and said,
yeah.
"Mom's giving me the blessing, I'm going for it," and like
Yeah.
was it pedal to the metal once that had been established?
Yeah, basically. And I didn't know much about my own production, so I put out my first little baby EP like right away and look back on it and cringe a bit, and have now learned a lot more about self-production and have moved forward and I've started telling the story of this body of work now, which is the Disciples, the first chapter in that body of work, and it's about my evangelical escapee past.
Right. Right. And was some of that like that distance, that physical distance you have to put between your past and then taking off and going overseas and figuring stuff out, and that
Yeah,
physicalness separation, did that help with dealing with it?
I don't think I could have processed everything that happened to me between age 13 and 17 until now,
Wow.
enough to write about it with, well, pardon the pun, but in good faith,
Right. Right.
and good humor.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's fun to laugh at our past sometimes to be able to deal with it a little bit easier.
Oh, absolutely. I think when people ask me about Run Remedy, I'm like, it's equal parts goof and grief, which
Right.
those two should always go hand in hand. Like we should all laugh at ourselves. Life is ridiculous. So
Absolutely. I
yeah.
totally agree with you. And
Or
what
pain.
what's your writing process like, Robin? Like, how do you go about, like, when did you first start writing songs and seeing them as something that you would put out into the world, that you felt that there was enough there that people would find something that
I
would
think
help them or they would relate to or whatever it might be? Because, I mean, putting stuff out there is, particularly when you're going back into those harder times or harder memories, you're really wearing your heart on the sleeve there. And
yeah.
how did that process work for you so that you could do that?
I mean, I always wrote songs. I think when I was still in high school, I won a local, like a regional competition, like the John Lennon songwriting competition in
Oh,
my
nice, nice. Good
for
for you.
some dinky little song about snow. I don't remember. My picture got put above booth number 6 at the local Applebee's. Like
Whoa,
I know, big
that's
stuff.
that is
Local
cool.
down here.
That's not a lot of people get that. So, I
Pretty
mean,
pretty cringy now, but
with like, it's cool that you still remember that as an important moment.
I can
Any
do
kind of
it.
recognition,
Oh,
particularly when you're younger, it's amazing recognition, right? I mean,
yeah. Yeah, the tour bus came and I got to watch a video from Yoko Ono saying congratulations. That definitely wasn't a carbon copy of everybody else.
wow,
But
amazing. That's cool. That's cool. And then, like, what was your first real song that you penned where you felt, again, I'm onto something here? Or I really like how these songs are coming together, and that they might have some legs to them. What was that like while you were still traveling, or once you had settled down in the UK?
I think it was once I really settled down. I was just maybe garnering my taste for that whole time and playing tons of music, tons of different genres, saying yes to everything musically that I could get my hands on. But I was always privately journaling and I'm called Remedy because it's my own music therapy, and it's a joke with my mom as well because she'd be like, "Oh, you always have to run away from stuff and then write a song about it, and that's what heals you." And it's just true.
Wise words. Yeah,
Run-
very wise
so,
words.
yeah, so she would always tease me and be like, "It's go do your runaway remedy thing," you know. And it
That's
used to be playing violin alone in my room when we'd have a fight or when I needed to be alone, and that slowly changed to yeah, like journaling and writing down thoughts. And then I finally taught myself guitar, so I had a tool to write on something more like structured.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you found that your sound has evolved over time? Like what was the first thing you put out? And again, correct me when, like it wasn't that long ago, right? Like this is still a relatively new
Yeah. This
exploration.
this is all pretty new. Yeah. It's a new world
Right.
for me. 2021 was my first little mini release, and it was all, scrappy strings and maybe one electric guitar. And uh yeah, it started still very earnestly, like songs about labels that I struggled with or relationships that I struggled with, one with my sister, Jenny, and where that relationship was at that time. So, yeah, every song, I only write a song if I'm chewing on something and I've got to work it
Mm,
out. you know,
right. Right.
it's just my own.
It's a great way, right? And I love the way your mom described your name too, like your moniker. Like wow, like
Oh,
because
I go
off
with it.
that's very close to your thing. Um, I like many artists feel that as well. I don't think they've expressed it as well as you just did, but
Well, I'm just
that
close.
there is. Well, your mom was a wise woman.
She was.
Sounds to me. Just these few little stories you're telling me, but that it is tapping into the things that maybe never got dealt with, and they don't go
Yeah.
away. Funny enough, they sit there somewhere inside and
Yeah.
stew.
My vanity music project is unsurprisingly processing my past trauma.
Right? Gather around, let me share.
Well, but
Um,
then the overarching goal is that by sharing that and sharing our journeys and our process of healing and maybe a bit of laughter alongside it and lots of biblical punnery, we can get other people who've had the same experiences laughing along, crying and laughing along with us, right? So,
well, there's so much biblical imagery that we're inundated with all the time that it's really hard to escape. Um, Even if you are a proclaimed atheist or a non-believer, it's just there everywhere you look. It's hard to escape. I'm glad that you're taking it and taking control of it, and making it yours. Uh, I've
I'm having
really
to
enjoyed the records that and the songs. This last one we were talking about before we hopped on here, your latest single, Disciple.
disciple, disciple.
Disciple. Yeah. Um, what what drove you to get that song out? Like,
Oh,
what were the things you were working with or on for that song?
I was I was reached out to by a girl in my past, and she was one of a long list of girls. I mean, not that long a list of girls, but
Mm.
uh, from my past in the Christian community I grew up in, who I had had a dalliance with, shall we say, and who was still in the closet and was she was reaching out to me, but again secretly and in a sort of help me out. I'm having trouble with this. How are you? Trying to connect with me again, but I'm far past that stage now of hiding, and
That's in the rear view.
exactly. And so when I got that call from her, a lot of that old frustration and memory came back to me about like, just like how frustrating that was, constantly having to hide or be ashamed or making really wonderful connections with other girls and then being told to sort of pray the gay away the next day or going to church with them and them not making eye contact with me, like being somebody's dirty little secret, and feeling very dirty for it, in terms of like I should be ashamed of myself or under the eyes of God and we're here. But then of course it's extra hot when you're like taboo like at
Right,
the same
right.
time. So the
Those are
story,
some serious struggles to battle with, particularly at that a younger age too, when you're just not experienced and your confidence level is already wavering. Like it's just like let's
and in
like
my
add other difficulties on top, just pile them on.
In my case, my parents are both preachers. They were the church leaders in two separate churches. So I felt so much pressure to be this like perfect kid, playing the violin, teaching Sunday school, babysitting everybody's kids in the parish, going on all the youth group retreats and organizations. And yeah,
Amazing the front that you can put on and still have all this like stuff locked behind it that is
yeah,
there. You know it. You feel it every
yeah,
day, every second. Yet everybody sees the outside. Oh,
yeah.
wonderful, Robin. Oh, what a great violinist. Oh, she teaches the kids all about the trees of life and blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
And
yeah, sure. Yeah, but
yeah,
then when I did leave home and come out, like I felt so much guilt on my parents, well, my mom's, parish going to her and saying things like, well, your daughter's going to hell. How are you supposed to lead us? You couldn't save her. So that kind of even like professional risk to their jobs was on my mind.
I,
Yeah, but
that's a lot
for
for a
it
young person to
anyway.
have to deal with, eh? Like,
Yeah, I went
um,
for it anyway, but that disciple is about yeah, it's full of religious puns that are also quite sexual. Because the language we use around religion is pretty erotic. It
it surely is. It totally
really
is. Like,
is.
absolutely, absolutely. And it can be denied or like, no, it really means this. Well, I don't think so. I mean
Yeah,
this too,
come
right?
on.
Things
Insinuations.
can mean more than one thing for sure. Well, well, I mean, it's gonna make my next listen to your record all the more, um,
Oh
well, your
yeah.
singles and your EP all the more ear popping because I'm gonna really listen to it in more
Oh yeah.
detail.
This is just the first one in a series of reflective queer girl evangelical escapee bangers. So get ready.
I am.
A very
Well,
specific audience.
right, right. So, Robin, kind of bringing this to a bit of a close here. What 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 does the future hold? Like, so this single came out in September, as you mentioned. What does the next rest of this year look like for you? What else could you tell us about your music?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot this summer all around the UK. Festival season's mad, so
Yeah,
I'm going to quiet down now and focus on releasing the rest of this body of work. Um, it's basically an album, but
yeah.
I haven't announced it yet. I have to, announce it at the right shush. But I'm doing an
No
untraditional.
records going here on right now, but there's an
No,
amazing single out.
there you go. There's an amazing thing. Um,
More to
I'm
come, I bet.
the whole body of work, shall we say, is it's about chapters from age 13 to 17, which is when I realized that I was queer until I left home, until I ran away from home. And uh, so each song is this part of the story, a part of the chapter of the story. And so I'm doing an untraditional release of them where I'm waiting a few months and then putting out the next chapter. And I'll have varying levels of like promotion for each one. And by the end of the year, or by the end of like maybe by spring, I'll have enough chapters out there. And to be honest, I've got a whole EP that I'm mixing after that already. I'm pretty prolific. Once I got
Good
started, I
work.
had a lot to say.
There you go. I mean, once the remedy begins, it runs,
Yeah,
right?
I
I'm
better go
really
out and get some more trouble if I'm going to keep writing.
well. I will post every single that you put out on the blog. So there, we're gonna play Disciple at the end of this podcast, so you can have an idea of Remedy and what Robin does. It's really amazing stuff. I hope that you all go and support. There are artists that give everything in their music, and it deserves that appreciation. So, Robin, thanks so much for carving a bit of time. It's been really talking with you and getting to know you a little bit. And I'd love to have you back on anytime, next EP or single or record, whatever you want to call it, comes out. It'd be awesome to chat with
Body
you
of the body of Christ.
again. There we go. There we go. I love it. Well, I wish you a bunch of rest and you find some inner peace over this hectic time in life, and please keep writing. I know you're going to have to. It's part of the journey. So keep it up, and I look forward to hearing it.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Is this your handout? Your most self-righteous one? Something grander and so devoid of fun. 'Cause I'm in a dark place, like the bottom of a well, with a small piece of headspace where I can see you very well. The hours, and you have the mindset, you have the power, you have the power and the truth to your word. To your word. Is this a potluck? And did I take more than I brought? Help me get unstuck, 'cause it's deeper than I thought. I wanna touch you, but you wanna touch the sacred host. Place him under your tongue and think of your missionary pulse. Up in the pulpit, shepherding love at a dead shot. You set the scene up, now you gotta watch it all play out. Tell me about him and how he's gonna save my soul. Can he? Should he? To your word. Was it always a vicious cycle? Did it cross your chest? I am still